For most of my life, I experienced intense amount of existential fear, and I tried to resolve it through philosophy, finding the true nature of reality, some metaphysical purpose, or the meaning of existence. And I was so obsessed about finding the nature of truth that I found out that truth means dying. It's the sense of self that blocks you from what is true because it loses itself in narratives that are not true at all. And since then, the feeling is that I'm truly liberated to live my life how I want to live my life. Feeling that inside is a privilege. It's a luxury that you can feel that inside because it gives you the opportunity for a deep emotional release. There are two versions of being dead inside. One is the emotionally suppressed one, where you have constant racing thoughts and existential angst. Not feeling anything is the result of suppressing your emotions. And then there's the emotionally free one, where you experience immense amount of freedom and liberation from all sorts of societal and existential conundrums. I experienced the second version, and I want to tell you how it is like for me. I experience very little to no emotions at all on a daily basis. I feel extremely liberated and content to a degree I did not think was possible even 4 years ago or 3 years ago. My sense of self has dissolved, and now I experience an immediate connection to whatever is happening in my surroundings. There's absolutely zero distance from any sensation to another. I can hear myself talk, and I can see the wall on the other side of the camera. I can see the light at the left side of my eye. And to me, all of these sensations are immediately present exactly in the same way. And there is zero distance between one sensation and another. There's not an observer in my head looking outside of the world, but the entire world for me is like a 3D model that I am inhabiting directly. And there's zero distance from one point of the model to another point of the model because there's just immediacy of that experience. The illusion of the self that thinks it is behind the head or behind the eyes has dissolved to such a degree that I don't experience a solid identity of self anymore. This makes it so that I feel very free when I relate to other people because I don't feel like I need to prove my existence to other people. I know exactly what I am and I have zero doubts about what I am because it is immediately obvious how I experience my existence. My entire life I was looking for an existential truth to fulfill me, and I found this existential truth by understanding my sense of self and dissolving the ego mechanics that was keeping me trapped. A lot of it was thinking obsessively about myself, my future, and my past. Now I have barely any thoughts about my past and barely any thoughts about the future. I don't have a narrative in my head about what I have to accomplish or what I failed in the past. My entire life seems like it starts anew every time I wake up in the morning. I have context of how I got here, and I can tell the stories about how I got here, but I feel zero identification with them. The same with my beliefs and my views of the world. I personally don't experience beliefs how I used them to. I would even go so far and say that I don't believe in anything anymore, which for some might sound very negative coded. And it's precisely because the ego feels identified with their beliefs. And if you stop believing in anything, it feels like some part of you is dying, which is precisely the sensation that I have. I don't feel any belief as part of my identity. I couldn't care less if somebody thinks that I'm right or wrong about something. The only extent to which I care about being right or wrong is in order to have influence for other people and to be able to affect my surroundings. I do care about the state of the world, my family and friends, like any normal human would, but it is not attached to my sense of identity, what happens next in my life or for people in my surroundings. It's more about the immediacy of the experience that it relates with. Also, when I'm in social situations, I feel little to no anxiety at all about how I'm being perceived. I'm actually very shameless, and I can be also kind of rude as a response of that. Ego and obligation comes from other people pushing their narratives onto you, and the judgments that they give you moves your life into one direction. And it's this that makes it feel so inauthentic, because it's not what your own self desires. It's not even what your own ego desires. It's what other people have projected onto you, and therefore you've adopted as your sense of self. I'm telling you as sincerely as I can what it's like for me to be dead inside. If your version of dead inside is emotional numbness, existential fear, and thoughts that won't stop, I can analyze your ego and see what's still alive in there and what's causing your suffering. I wrote a document that explains exactly how my process works. The link is in the description. It used to be the case that whenever I talked to other people, it was always about being liked, being seen as a cool person, pleasant to be around, popular, having some sort of image about, being just nice to be around. It's about being seen as correct or true or somewhat higher in the hierarchy in comparison to, other pals. The same happens around sex and dating, where having a relationship was a huge part of my identity. And then also the moment this identity broke, a huge part of wanting to date and be with other women was just so that I could prove to other people that even though I now left my relationship, I'm still desirable in the eyes of other women. So it took some time to realize that all this pursuit for sex and validation also was just a byproduct of ego validation or seeking more ego validation. And if you've also gone through some egoic transformation or dissolution of your sense of self, you will notice that most of the desire towards sex and dating comes from this ego being alive and wanting to assert its own sense of self by being validated by another. And if you lose this, you lose this drive that pursued other people for validation. This is also why, for me, I have no need to date around or be in lookout for more friendships. This doesn't mean that I cannot pursue it for my own enjoyment or for some genuine connection with another, but there's zero existential desire for me to do so. I used to feel existentially lonely to a degree that I can't possibly describe into words. I used to lay in bed and imagine myself to be a god so I could connect to the sense of cosmos, because I felt so isolated the moment I looked at my own little humanity. This sense of loneliness actually deepened over time, so much so that I figured out that the sense of loneliness is born purely by the ego's desire to be seen by another person, to be validated. You can look at the ego and map it out and architect it, and you can feel seen in this way for a while, but you will never be seen in a way that makes you a permanent solid self, because this entire construct is an illusion you cannot keep up once you spend a significant time alone and in silence. I used to compare a lot of people between another, and I used to compare my experience with other people's experience and rank myself in some sort of not just hierarchy, but also comparing my life to other people's lives and being happy that I'm me and not them, or being very frustrated that I am, this kind of person. Like, I'm not tall enough, or why wasn't I white, or why wasn't I born in a different place? Like, whatever the mind comes up with to be unsatisfied with who he is. Now I almost work with zero friction, because so much of the sense of self that I used to have also worked in order to tell itself a story of productivity. I needed to have a successful career and become super financially wealthy in order to feel okay with myself. And if I wouldn't be able to accomplish this, especially after the breakup, I would feel like I didn't find myself because I am just another loser. So there's this narrative of making your life special in some way, to not just be another human or another mammal living your day to day, but to have some grand narrative of meaning or purpose. Now, when your sense of self dies, all these egoic drives towards a successful career, a business, success that is being recognized by other people dies with it because it's seen as an absolute delusion of the mind. Just because other people see you as some sort of authority figure or they validate your work, it changes absolutely zero about who you actually are. And all it changes is this perception that you imagine other people have of you. But if you're honest, you can notice that most people actually don't care about what you do or what other people do in their lives because everybody is so goddamn self-obsessed. So there's no way you can be seen as some sort of special figure in a way that is authentic, because this need to be seen as a special figure is completely self-constructed. And do you really want to be envied? Is this the goal of the operation here, so that people feel a negative emotion when they're around you because you have something that they don't? And now, since this need of validation has dropped, I feel much more competent in social situations because I have not a hidden agenda that I'm trying to fuel. I don't care what happens in any social situations because I am dead within them. I just experience them for what they are, which usually means that I'm just trying to have fun and explore things and maybe poke at some holes, which makes interactions also much more fun. So the feeling that I have is that I connect way deeper with people when I talk to them, because it's much easier to just listen to them, because I'm not stuck in my thoughts trying to think what I have to say next before the person even has finished speaking. With no agenda, you can just be with the person and sincerely connect with the person. This need for genuine connection is also completely gone. I enjoy connections and I feel very pleasant also when I get compliments or when somebody gives me a hug, or any sort of normal human interaction is still pleasant for me. There's just no need behind it anymore. And I would say that after a certain point of awakening, or the real word that I'm trying to avoid all the time is self-realization. After the point of self-realization, there comes a point where it's not possible to have kind of an emotional relationship with other people the way you're used to, because this entire operating system that needed other people to feel emotion dies. And this entire process for many people is very uncomfortable and very destabilizing. And there are very few places that have a model that validate that this entire process is actually real, because it feels like dying. It is not pleasant at all. You can experience, or I experienced also moments of derealization, of depersonalization, of a lot of panic attacks, because you feel like you're losing your mind, because the operating system that almost all of society runs on dies within you, and you didn't even know that this was possible. An awakening experience is usually the first sign for your own mind to notice that, the ego is actually real, and it does exist as some sort of construct in your brain, and it has controlled all of your life. And to notice this is the first step to actually initiate the dying process, which for most people is very, very shocking. Like, people come to me and they cannot believe what they've gone through all of a sudden, because it feels like magic. The sense of dissolution with experience shows you how much of the human mind is just constantly lying to you, and how your perception of existence was always filtered by this endless projection of what you think is in other people's heads, when you have zero ability to actually notice for certain. It's all projection. And once you die to a significant degree, you can see how much projection really is in other people. To really go from awakening to self-realization, to which at the end of it would be full enlightenment, which would mean no ego whatsoever, this entire process will always put you in certain traps. The most popular trap is to feel superior than other people because you realized how little of an ego you now have, which is very paradoxical. But it usually leads to a sort of sense of emptiness where you feel like you cannot connect with other people how you used to. But this sense of emptiness gives you still a sense of separation that makes you feel subtly superior, like your consciousness is higher level than others. This entire architecture of hierarchies does literally not exist in my head anymore. I cannot look at any person in this world and think about them as above me or lower than me. If I look at a homeless guy on the street and I talk to them, there's zero sense that I am superior or inferior to them. And if I talk to a CEO from like a large company or a business, there's zero sense that I am lower or above them, because I understand that beneath the ego, we are all literally the same. And when I say we are literally the same, I mean it literally, not just as some fantasy, but that whatever experience is to its core is the same. There's no judgment that I parse to other people in some emotional or identified way. The sense of ego is what compares and contrasts other people all the time and judges other people all the time. And you can see this online everywhere. We love to judge other people because the moment we judge others, we put ourselves higher or below them. And I can still look at a person and say, he is an evil person, or this guy behaves wrongly. And I can do so from a position that from the outside might seem like just the same sort of judgment or more loading, but from the inside, it is just an assessment of how their ego behaves. If they put themselves in front of other people and cause harm as a consequence. To me, this is an objective observation that I can make. And in order to communicate, I might say this is an evil act. So we can have some societal structured idea about what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. But I used to not just say this, but feel this. Like I used to notice my sense of distaste for other people, a sort of judgment that tries to put others lower and for me to feel superior than them. A lot of people have this, especially politically. Their entire sense of identity is based on the fact that they are left-leaning or right-leaning, and whoever isn't that is seen as wrong and therefore inferior to them. To me, it is not possible to see somebody who is, let's say, a flat earther, and then to think he's inferior to me because he doesn't have the right beliefs, or he doesn't know the truth, or he is deluded in some way. Because I know that the human architecture in its nature, through the ego, is delusion. And to the extent to which you have seen this illusion is going to run every little aspect of you. And it's not a moral failure, but it's the architecture of the human ego mind. For me, to judge one person as better or worse than another is like judging an animal better or worse than another for eating another animal, or eating an insect as like a spider. There's no moral overlay that makes sense. And all these moral overlays that we humans do are also a complete construction of the mind. The amazing thing is that once you lose all of these constructions, you sense like some part of you is dying, but at the end of this death, there's an immense amount of freedom. And it's the amount of freedom of this death that I'm talking about that is really the reason I'm doing everything that I'm doing. Because I did not think that what I'm saying here is possible. I did not believe that you could truly find existential peace, you could truly feel in direct contact with what is true without feeling or being super arrogant or pretentious. I used to have this strong fear that I'm going to be perceived as arrogant or pretentious the moment I speak my mind about stuff. And if you think that this is all, pretty pretentious still, and you don't really know what to make out of the stuff that I'm saying, then I have a Substack article that is called, Being a Semi-Enlightened Individual, where I make it even more explicit. And if you really want to understand what I'm pointing at here, then you should, read this article and, form your views around it. Because the real point of everything that I'm saying here is the reduction of suffering to near zero. It's what enlightenment has always been about. Not about some spiritual accomplishment, but actual existential freedom that is real. So I'm not claiming to be completely egoless or enlightened. I'm just claiming to be semi-enlightened. And if this sounds like I'm full of myself, then that's because I'm completely full of myself. It's just that there's no one there. Since this experience of dissolution with awareness, that honestly was a very slow process through, I would say, 8 to 9 years, and then came to this big point in, I think it's November 2024, where suddenly all of my doubts about what I know, all about my doubts about existence dropped away. And I could see that the last thing that blocked me from this level of death that I'm experiencing now was doubt. And I noticed how doubt is the fuel that keeps this machinery alive. It's not just that the ego pretends to be things that it isn't in order to be seen well in the eyes of others, on the eyes of yourself. But the ego also pretends to not know things that it actually knows. And a lot of very smart people do this all of the time. People are falsely humble so much because people are so scared of being seen as arrogant, being seen as selfish, being seen as pretentious. But this is this societal sort of manipulation that wants us to be small and to not actually express ourselves and show who we really are and show what we really want. And it also includes the possibility that people will think that you're absolutely arrogant and delusional and dismiss you. But it's this need to connect with others, to feel seen and validated and alive, that makes you hold back your actual aliveness to not be judged by others. The moment you let this go and express yourself and let this ego part die, you chip it away one bit at a time. Now this is what authenticity feels like, because there's nothing to be managed anymore. All you do is express yourself freely and show yourself who you really are. The problem is when we start to identify even with this. So this is also, again, this spiritual ego sense where, look at how authentic I am. Am I not special for being so authentic? Look how, real I am being here. And then there are so many layers in which the ego holds on to its own life. Even though I'm trying to explain myself to the best of my abilities without sounding like I am in some sort of magical, hyper psychedelic state or something, which is not the case. I feel very human. I feel very ordinary now. Like, there were phases where I feel like I was tripping balls, but now I feel very chill, very normal, very human, actually more human than ever before. And from there I can also see I have conditionings. I have still habits that have ingrained itself into my experience. The sense that there's something still left to integrate is the sense that, there's definitely still conditioning there, which is where there's still a lot of meditation to do, a lot of stuff to process, and just life to live, frankly, because, I'm very young. Who knows how it's going to be like for me in 10 years, and who knows what suffering can still await if things really go south. But The difference is I used to be so scared of that all the time. I used to be so scared of what the future may bring. And now it's just all, very much accepted. There's a huge acceptance with uncertainty, because also the ego gives the illusion that you could actually predict what is going to happen in like 10 minutes from now or tomorrow or 1 week. And then we kind of obsess and try to manipulate and control the experience, which is absolutely impossible. The sense of control is also what died completely. But the sense is that you kind of fall into the universe because there's no ground to stand on, because there's no one in control and there's no one doing anything. The world is moving through you and through everything, really. And the sense of doership is the sense that, there's some ego there that could actually influence and control things, but it doesn't make any sense. Think about how complex you are as an organism, how much things are working for you all the time, how much things are, influencing each other. This is also why in philosophy, when you realize determinism, it's usually a kind of awakening that, makes you realize how little control you actually have. It's just that intellectually realizing that determinism is true and then embodying this in your day-to-day experience as an emotionally integrated human are worlds apart, because determinism usually is a way for the ego to pretend that it's not responsible for the things it does. It's pretending that you are not actually influencing the world for how you're influencing it, but you definitely are. And the consequences of your actions are still real. The experience of your actions are still real. And this intellectualization of the lack of control into determinism is like one step in the right direction. But ultimately, even the sense of determinism gets dissolved and destroyed, because there is no determinism either. It's again just a mental overlap the mind puts onto reality in order to feel in control. And this is again where I said at the beginning, I feel like I have no beliefs. I can tell you, determinism is true. And from your point of view, if you agree, it might feel validating. And if you disagree, then you say, okay, I'm believing this. Like, this is a belief I'm imposing now. So I do have beliefs. But I can tell you free will is true in the same breath. And there's no contradiction for me here, because all we're doing is using words to describe a reality that is made out of movement and immediate experience. And all sense of words are kind of like an overlay we use to describe things. But I know I am not the words. That's also why when I argue with people or I discuss these existential topics, there are zero stakes for me here. All I want is to help people understand themselves better and gain a clearer picture of reality. But it is very, very difficult to offend me or make me feel threatened in a way, because from my perspective, it is impossible to actually threaten me through my belief systems or through judging me. Now, this doesn't mean that I am completely like a cold stoic or whatever. I do experience emotions and I can get hurt. I even can get hurt emotionally. It's just the relationship to these things has shifted in such a foundational way that is really incredible from where I'm standing. For example, last year, my cat died, and it was super, super emotional, and it was very sad. But now reflecting on this experience, it was actually quite beautiful. Like, all of the sadness and all of the mourning, it felt like love. And this experience of love was found in the sadness. And I enjoy emotions. Like, although they are very rare now, whenever I do experience emotions, they feel very natural. Like, it is just the body doing what the body is supposed to do. For me, the only goal really is to use all what I've learned through my own process of dying into existence and guiding other people through existential crisis and through awakening and through dying themselves, and to help them understand themselves better. The last thing I want is for people to hear what I'm saying and create a sort of dogma out of it, or some sort of pedestal they they put people in depending on their own awakening realization, because that's precisely the thing that is going to block your own death. Because if you are comparing yourself to others, you cannot cease into the nature of things, which is that there are no others. There's just immediate present awareness within yourself. Consciousness is constantly dying into life, and there's zero distance between any experience whatsoever. And the only blockage of full realization towards the nature of this is believing that you could be otherwise.
No, I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.